My first day in a new city. My name is Daniel, and 1 month ago, I moved to a new city. Everything here is different from my old home. The streets are bigger, the buildings are taller, and there are many more people. When I arrived, I felt excited but also a little scared. I did not know anyone, and I was not sure what to do. On the first morning, I woke up early. The sun was shining, and the city was already full of life. Cars were moving fast on the road, people were walking to work, and the sound of birds was mixed with the noise of the streets. I looked out of my window and saw many small shops and cafes. Everything looked new and interesting. I decided to go outside and explore. I put on my shoes, took my bag, and left my apartment. The air was fresh, and the smell of coffee and bread was everywhere. I walked slowly, looking at the different places around me. There were fruit markets, bookshops, and small restaurants with colorful signs. The people were friendly, and some of them smiled when they saw me. After walking for a while, I found a big park. It had tall trees, green grass, and many benches. Some people were sitting and reading, others were running or walking their dogs. I sat on a bench and watched everything around me. I felt calm and happy. Then, I saw something interesting. Near the center of the park, there was a small music group playing instruments. They had a guitar, a violin, and a drum. The music was soft and beautiful. People stopped to listen, and some even clapped their hands. I enjoyed the music and stayed there for a long time. After some time, I felt hungry, so I decided to find something to eat. I walked back to the street and looked for a place to have lunch. There were many options, but I wanted to try something new. I saw a small restaurant with a sign that said homemade food. It looked nice, so I went inside. The smell inside was warm and welcoming. There were wooden tables, soft lights, and pictures on the walls. I sat near the window and looked at the menu. I chose a simple meal, soup, bread, and tea. When the food arrived, it was hot and delicious. The soup was full of vegetables, and the bread was soft. I ate slowly, enjoying every bite. After lunch, I continued exploring. I walked down new streets, looking at the different buildings and people. I saw a big library, a flower shop, and a cinema with colorful posters. Everything felt exciting and full of possibilities. At the end of the day, I returned to my apartment. I was tired but happy. I had seen many new places, heard beautiful music, and eaten good food. I sat on my bed and thought about my day. This city was different from my old home, but I liked it. I knew that tomorrow, I would go out again and discover even more. A new routine in the city. The next morning, I woke up early again. The sky was a little cloudy, but the air was fresh. I got dressed, made my bed, and prepared a simple breakfast. I ate toast with butter and drank a cup of tea. While I ate, I looked out of the window. The city was already awake, full of people going to work and school. I liked watching the busy streets. After breakfast, I decided to go for a walk again. I wanted to see new places. I took my bag, put on my shoes, and left my apartment. The air outside was cool, and the streets had a soft morning light. I walked slowly, looking at the different shops and cafes. Some cafes had people sitting outside, drinking coffee and talking. Others had big glass windows where I could see people working on their computers. As I walked, I saw the library I had noticed the day before. It was a big building with tall windows and a blue door. I decided to go inside. The library was quiet and peaceful. There were many books on tall wooden shelves. Some people were sitting at tables, reading or writing. Others were walking slowly, looking for books. I walked through the aisles, reading the titles on the shelves. There were books about history, science, travel, and art. I found a section with books in different languages. I picked up a small book in English and read the first page. The words were simple, and I understood most of them. I smiled. This could be a good way to practice English. I sat at a table near the window and started reading. The story was interesting, and time passed quickly. After some time, I heard a sound of rain. I looked outside and saw that it had started to rain softly. The streets were wet, and people were walking with umbrellas. I liked the sound of the rain against the windows. I continued reading for a while, then decided to borrow the book and take it home. I went to the counter, and the librarian, a kind older woman, smiled at me. She gave me a small card and told me I could take books for free if I returned them in 2 weeks. I thanked her and left the library, feeling happy. Since it was raining, I decided to go to a cafe. I found a small cafe on the corner of the street. It had a warm light inside and a sign that said fresh coffee and homemade cake. I went inside, and the smell of coffee and chocolate filled the air. I ordered a cup of hot chocolate and a slice of cake. The cafe was cozy, with soft music playing in the background. I sat near the window and opened my book again. I read while I sipped my hot chocolate. The rain continued outside, making everything feel calm and peaceful. After an hour, the rain stopped, and the sun came out again. The streets looked clean and fresh. I left the cafe and continued my walk. I passed by a small park and saw some children playing. A man was walking his dog, and a woman was sitting on a bench, writing in a notebook. I walked for a long time, enjoying the fresh air and the quiet streets. I felt happy and comfortable in the city now. I was starting to learn the streets, recognize the shops, and feel more at home. When I returned to my apartment, I placed the book on my desk and sat on my bed. I thought about everything I had done that day. I had visited a library, read a book, enjoyed a cafe, and walked through the city. I knew that every day, I would learn something new. I was excited for tomorrow and all the new experiences waiting for me, feeling at home in the city. The next morning, I woke up feeling happy. The city was no longer strange to me. I was starting to know the streets, the places, and even some of the people. I got out of bed, stretched my arms, and opened the window. The air was fresh, and the sky was bright blue. It was a perfect day to explore more. I ate a quick breakfast, toast with jam and a glass of orange juice. Then, I put on my shoes, took my bag, and grabbed the book I borrowed from the library. I wanted to return it and maybe borrow another one. When I stepped outside, the city was already full of life. I walked through the streets, passing by the same cafes and small shops I had seen before. Some people were opening their stores, others were drinking coffee outside, and some were walking their dogs. I felt like I was part of this place now. When I arrived at the library, the kind librarian smiled at me. I gave her the book and told her I liked it. She nodded and pointed to another section. "Maybe you will like these books too," she said. I walked to the section she showed me and found a new book. It was a little longer than the first one, but the words were still easy to understand. I borrowed it, thanked the librarian, and left the library, feeling excited to read it later. After that, I decided to go back to the park where I had been before. I liked that place because it was quiet and peaceful. When I arrived, I sat on the same bench under the big tree. The sun was warm, and the leaves made a soft sound in the wind. As I sat there, I saw the same music group playing again. The guitarist was strumming soft notes, and the violinist was playing a beautiful melody. Some people stopped to listen, just like before. I closed my eyes for a moment and enjoyed the music. Then, I remembered something. There was a music store near my apartment. I had seen it before but never went inside. I suddenly wanted to visit it. I stood up, left the park, and walked toward the store. When I arrived, I saw guitars, keyboards, and drums inside. The sound of soft piano music was playing in the background. An old man behind the counter looked up and smiled. "Welcome," he said. I looked around, touching the guitars gently. I had never played an instrument before, but I always wanted to try. I saw a small ukulele on the shelf. It looked simple and easy to hold. The old man noticed me looking at it. "Do you want to try?" he asked. I nodded. He handed me the ukulele and showed me how to place my fingers. I strummed a few chords, and the sound was light and happy. It made me smile. "You learn fast," the man said. I laughed. "Maybe one day, I can play a song." "Everything starts with one step," he said. I thanked him and left the store, feeling excited. Maybe one day, I really would learn how to play. As I walked back home, I thought about everything that had happened since I arrived in this city. At first, I felt nervous and alone. I didn't know the streets, the people, or where to go. But now, I had favorite places. I had a library where I could read, a cafe where I could sit and relax, and a park where I could listen to music. The city was no longer just a place where I lived, it was starting to feel like home. That night, I sat on my bed with my new book and started reading. The sounds of the city were outside my window, cars, people talking, soft music playing in the distance. I smiled to myself. I knew that tomorrow would bring more new experiences, and I was ready for all of them.